Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Brave Files podcast. Today's guest is Jessica Kupferman. She's the founder and co-host of She Podcasts, which is one of the largest platforms for female-identified podcasters in the world. But I didn't invite Jessica here to talk about podcasting. After I became active in the She Podcast group, I learned of the tragic loss of Jessica's daughter, Emily. Having just lost a beloved cousin in the exact same way through the opioid crisis, I invited Jessica to talk with me about her experience living through her daughter's addiction and eventual death. This story doesn't end well because nothing can bring Emily back. But hearing the pure love and joy in Jessica's voice as she tells stories of her daughter, even the horribly painful ones, and the forgiveness she's working so hard for is truly beautiful. This conversation is important because every single day, more than 130 people die from an opioid overdose in the United States alone. Something must be done, and we need to be talking about it. I'd like to thank Jessica for her willingness, honesty, and vulnerability in this conversation as she shares the story of how much she loves her daughter, how hard she fought to save her, and how she's now learning to save herself.
Pressure, bravery, helplessness.
This is Heather Vickery, and you're listening to The Brave Files, stories from people living courageously. When we choose bravely in big and small ways, it powerfully elevates our lives. I hope these stories connect with you and encourage you to embrace bravery in every possible way, day after day. Together, we can build a movement of courageous living that enriches both our lives and our communities. And if you enjoy the show, I ask you to please share it with others. Maybe think of someone who you want to choose bravely right alongside you.
Thanks so much for joining us here at the Brave Files.
Now here's the show.
I'm glad you're here with us today. I am joined by an incredible woman. Jessica Kupferman is here. She's in a bigwig in the podcast industry, and I admire her a lot. But she's actually here today to share the painful and heartbreaking story of her daughter's addiction and subsequent death. Aside from that, though, Jessica is doing everything she can to support a world where women's voices are not only heard, but readily spoken. She's about micro-connection, and I want to find out how her daughter's tragic story has impacted the way that she moves through the world at large and how she takes what she's learned to help and support others. Jessica, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so I just dropped a big bomb on everybody. Like we just dropped that right in.
Boom.
No big deal. Yeah, right. So if you could take us back and tell us a little bit about your life, about your daughter, and we'll just sort of go from there.
Okay. By the way, those of you who did not turn off the podcast after hearing that, thank you for staying to hear it. I'm sure that's like, nope, not today.
Sometimes people save it. They'll go, you know what? I saved that one for when I have the right mindset for listening. I hear that.
Yeah, I mean, it is a big bomb, but so my life. Leading up to Emily's birth, let's say, I grew up in Frederick, Maryland, which is it's dead center in the middle of the city, right in the mountains, and I went to college at University of Delaware. I grew up upper middle class, Jewish. The town I grew up in did not have very many Jewish people, and I felt very much like an outsider. Not that it's relevant to this conversation, but it is relevant to many of them that I have.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I went to University of Delaware because University of Maryland was pretty much where everyone in Frederick was going to go. It was like 40 minutes from my house, and I wasn't too keen on a high school reunion. I wasn't an outcast in high school. When you don't fit in, you know it inside. It has nothing to do with I wasn't ostracized or anything like that. I just didn't like them, and they didn't feel like my style.
Yeah.
So
I get that.
Yeah. So I went to UD, and around my senior year, I started working at an Italian restaurant, and I met this guy who was about 31. I was 19. Oh. And he, when I was 19 in college, I did a lot of drinking, and smoking pot. I didn't realize this dude was an alcoholic. But I was hanging out with him a lot after work. And then one night, we weren't really dating. We were just kind of like hanging out. One night after work, we had gone to get bacon and eggs. We went back to his house to make bacon and eggs. And down comes this giant yellow dog and a boy after the dog, half asleep. He was the younger brother.
Okay.
And
I was like, wait, surprise kid? No, okay.
No. Boy meaning like he was like 27.
Okay.
Not 31. And so, he was like half asleep cooking the bacon for the dog. And I don't know, we sort of just like, I just kind of took one look at him and I was like, hello.
Oh.
It was very strange, but I didn't really do much about it. And then like, the more we hung out, whether, the brother was there or not, like eventually he started to be like, you should be hanging out with me. You shouldn't be hanging out with him. And I was like, that's a weird approach, I think. you maybe shouldn't be hitting on me like that. That seemed weird. But he was trying to tell me, like, my brother's an alcoholic. You have no business being with him. And
Right.
he was right.
Yeah.
Somehow he convinced me to go out with him. Long story short, we got married. I got pregnant with Emily. We got married. I went back to college to finish because I had my senior year left to go. I got pregnant again and finished 8 months pregnant with her younger brother, Nate.
Wow.
So there's Emily, there's Nate, and then about a year and a half, 2 years after that, we got divorced because we were very, very different.
Yeah.
When you're 19, 20, 21, you really think that socioeconomic status and things like education level don't matter. They do matter, not because you should be with your own kind, but simply because you don't want to be married to someone that you feel is an alien from another planet. And that's kind of like how we both felt, probably.
Right.
I won't speak for him, but that's kind of how I felt.
Okay.
So we have Emily, we have Nate, we get divorced. Emily was always quirky, artistic. Years later, I found out that her father had bipolar disorder, but this was like he was unmedicated and undiagnosed for years and years and years. I did know that her biological so her father's father, even though they had lots of touch when Rob was a little boy, he had paranoid schizophrenia.
Oh my goodness. So lots of mental health history there.
Lots of mental health history. And when I say quirky, I don't mean like she would like eat tires or anything. I just mean like she wouldn't raise her hand in class. And her answer was like, I don't like people staring at my head. Or like, she didn't want to be at the front of the she never wanted to be the line leader. Same reason. I don't like when people push me in line. I like to be in the back so nobody's staring at me.
Okay. So she wanted to fly under the radar, this one.
Yeah. And it was impossible. She was a beauty. It was absolutely impossible for her to fly under the radar. And like, in addition, she I don't know, like she perceived things in such a, I spent a lot of her childhood being like, what are you talking about? No one hates you. These people are nice to you. Like a lot of what she said didn't make sense to me. And I just thought, okay, well, she just has her own little mind and she's going to do whatever. Like, she actually was borderline personality disorder.
I was going to say, there was somebody in her mind telling her she was hearing those things.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not like multiple personality. It's more like if someone gives you a side eye because they want to see if like their friend is coming, she would immediately interpret that as they hate me. They want me to leave.
Okay.
And it was like a constant state of anxiety and or rage. That's what borderline means. I'm borderlining between panic attack and full on temper tantrum.
Right.
And like, I wouldn't say that most of her childhood was relatively happy, but when these things would happen, it felt impossible to sort of understand. And it was not actually until she became an addict that I figured it out.
So she did not get medically diagnosed for any of this stuff when she was a child.
No, she was diagnosed as a child. It was like anxiety and a little bit of oppositional defiance. Like, they couldn't really figure it out.
Right.
And then and then as a teenager, she kind of had like a nervous breakdown. And I don't know if that was because of drugs and alcohol. She either did a really good job of hiding what she was doing, or she was, there was stuff that was happening as she got older. So now we're into like 12, 13, 14. Now she's starting to make up stories about herself that she knows full well are not true. For example, telling people she's from Tennessee or Georgia.
And to what end? Why?
Her grandmother grew up in Boones Creek, Tennessee. So her dad's side of the family is Southern. Okay. She's never been there. She doesn't know anything about that, but she started telling people she was from the South, and she started wearing cardigans and pearls like she was a Southern belle. which was like, all right, I guess so. Okay, that seems like a fun whatever. And then for a little while there, she was a juggalo and started listening to Insane Clown Posse.
Okay.
Which I didn't even know what to say because I knew that someday one of my children would listen to the one type of music that I hated. I didn't expect it to be like a white trash cult, but all right. And for her to be like, you don't understand, these people are my family. And I'm like, you're half Jewish. Half the East Coast is your family. Like, this is, you don't need this family.
Coast. Okay.
You're related to like 1,000 people in the next 60 miles. Like, you don't need, it made no sense to me. Then she started telling, then we get a little older, 13, 14. She starts telling people she's from like a really terrible side of town. And from is a strong word. Wilmington has nice areas and has not nice areas. Like, like my husband and I live in a very nice area. Her dad lives in like a sort of a sketchy area. Not the ghetto, but like working class people who would probably like to live somewhere else, but are just trying, just like okay area. Not affluent, and I wouldn't say unsafe, but not affluent. But so she starts telling people she's from this side of town. She starts hanging out with people that are not well supervised.
Right. Well, that's
juvenile delinquents is a strong word, but
I'm telling
she's
you, not well supervised.
To this. Yeah.
I feel all of that. I'm the parent that, no surprise to anybody who listens often or knows me. My kid says, "Can I go to so and so's house after school?" I'm like, "Well, does so and so's parent know you're going to be there? Is there another adult home?" She's 15. Is there another adult that's going to be home? I want to talk to them first. And she's like, "Mom."
Oh, I do the same thing.
Just recently, she was having some friends over to celebrate her birthday, and it was a legit like little get together. And one of the young men she'd invited over, his mom was like, "I got to talk to your parent first." And my ex-husband was like, "Don't worry, Olivia's mom is exactly the same way."
I think that's really important. At least to hear that there's an adult present, even if you're not going to be present. Do you know my child is there
in your house?
And is there anything that they can screw up? Because if so, maybe don't have her over because she's a shit show, right? Like, don't, because my kids could spill stuff in an aquarium. You know what I'm saying? Like,
okay.
I mean, I'm not just kidding. They're not really that much of a mess, but I like to know that there's not something that they can get into they're not supposed to get into. So
at what point did she start to dabble in drugs and alcohol?
I mean,
that
if you were to ask her, she says 12, and that's possible that she was like sneaking medicine from her dad's medicine closet or even from mine. But I would say it was like the summer before her senior year, she broke up with this terrible kid. And by terrible, I just mean he looked like Howdy Doody. Like, he was ridiculous. And she started doing a lot of drinking. And with what I thought was like with friends turned out to be like her and her one friend who would stay sober so she wouldn't kill herself. Like, it was like her drinking a lot. And then when I would say, that alcoholics drink by themselves, she would tell me I'm ridiculous. Like, no, they don't. Like, it's only weird people that drink at parties. And I was like, okay. So this went on for a couple months. Then she crashed our car. Her friend was in the car with her friend. This kid's name was Cameron. He was in the car with her, but he wasn't very good at arguing with her. Nobody is really good with arguing with her, but him specifically, because he was completely in love with her. And so
an enabler. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so I told her she was going to have to ride the bus for a month. She flipped her lid. And I said, well, you can either ride the bus for a month or you can go to rehab. And so she said, I will go to rehab.
Wow.
So I was like, cool, good choice.
Yeah.
It was that or ride the bus, though, Heather.
The bus is, yeah. Well, I mean, was the bus just that terrifying, or did she maybe want help?
I think that, I think that she probably wanted help. I think she probably felt like rehab would be good for her because she shouldn't have been, like, the judgment that caused her to even get in the car is probably what needed work.
Yes.
There's some more nuances to the story. Like, when she got to rehab, she finished a 30-day program, and then they told her that, if she wanted to do some more healing, she could go to this like step down place in Florida. And her grandmother had moved to Florida like a couple years prior, and she constantly talked about going there and living with her grandmother. So for these people to offer her a chance to go to Florida, like, she was really gunning for it. And for the exact same reason I was not.
Yeah.
But this was her first stint in rehab, and they were like, lots of kids do it. Meanwhile, they get a kickback, and I didn't know that.
Oh, shit.
So off she goes, age 17, barely 18, for the first time away from home, to a new rehab that also wasn't very well staffed. And, like, she doesn't follow the rules because borderlines generally don't like to follow any rules. So she gets kicked out like within the last week, and she goes to another program. And needless to say, she was in and out of rehab for about 8 months while in Florida. And what happens is the kids down there hop. If their parents have good insurance, they can go in for 3 weeks and then relapse for a week, and then in for 3 weeks, then relapse for a week. And it happens not just to my daughter, it happens to a lot of people. So I was pretty upset by it, but she clearly wasn't going to come home. And in fact, I had stupidly trusted her enough to like get her car.
Oh no.
So what I had to do, so it was a whole to do, but basically her father and her stepfather and I planned out a kidnapping, and we kidnapped our own kid.
Wow.
From where she was living and drove her home in her own car. And she only realized it about halfway there. We had to.
How did she not realize it?
Okay. So I was supposed to visit her in Florida. And the night before my flight, her friend texts me a picture of her clearly using needles, which she had never done before.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, I can't go there. And I don't want to tell her I can't go there because God forbid she'll do something worse. So I didn't know what to do. So I called her father and her stepfather, and I was like, what are we going to do? I mean, he lives with, obviously I'm married.
Right.
So.
Right.
I was like, what are we going to do? I can't go there. I can't see her in like some kind of crack house. I just can't. I know I can't. So we devised this plan where I wasn't going to come because I was in the hospital. Borderlines have like a hero and, like one like steady person who's their hero. That person's me. If I can't come because I'm in the hospital, she will do anything possible to make sure that she could get to me. Okay. I knew that already. Like I know that about Emily. So what happened was I let her father use my ticket. He flew down to Florida. He rushed in. I mean, this was like the best acting job ever.
Wow.
Rushes in and he's like, grab your stuff. Your mom's in the hospital. We have to go. Didn't give her time for any explanation. Of course she's high off her ass, right? So so she doesn't think about it. She just like grabs some stuff, gets in the car. And it's not until like North Carolina that she figures out, it took her like a little while to get sober. But she finally figured out, and the whole time she's texting me. I hope you're okay. My friends are praying for you. Please don't die. Hope everything's okay. And then finally she realizes it. And boy, was she angry. She was now sober and angry and sober.
And about to go through withdrawal because there are no drugs.
Well, I warned her father about that. He was just like, he was like, bring it. I don't care. So she was home at my house for about a day. And then she went to another rehab so at least she was up here. And she spent the next year here in the Northeast. She was sober. So this was like in July. She ended up being sober from like December to the following June. And then in June, she relapsed again. But this time, I was not sending her to a rehab because what I've learned is that all of them have dual diagnosis.
Right.
They all say they have dual diagnosis, but they do not specialize in borderline. Borderlines are special. They're not bipolar. They're not manic depressive. They're not anxious.
Had she been diagnosed at this point with borderline?
So that summer that she was in Florida, not only was she doing the whole telling other people different things about her,
like making shit up.
She was answering the phone with accents.
Okay.
Like she was from Boston.
Okay.
And I was like, listen. And she was like, don't talk to me like that, Ma. I'm your daughter. And I was like, listen, between you and me, if you don't at least recognize that you are not from Massachusetts to me on the phone in some way, I'm going to commit you to a mental institution. I need you to tell me right now. And she was like, okay, Mom, I just like to make stuff up about people. And I'm like, thank you.
Okay.
I mean, but this happened. So when she was in Florida, that happened a lot. And I mean, it happened a lot when she came home too, like December, January, February. I mean, like, she was always telling someone like her name was Alaska. She had a twin. She was half black. Like it was so bizarre. And so I started researching that because I know that addicts have lots of other diagnoses, but I don't think they all pretend to be someone else. That seemed special to my daughter.
Right. Okay.
And so it turns out that borderlines also have this like, they have like a not a very good sense of self. They call it. Right. So it's like disassociation.
Yes.
So she's trying on personalities like pants, basically.
To see what fits.
Yeah. And so the last time I sent her somewhere that only specialized in borderline. So they weren't all addicts. Some of them had anorexia. Some of them had, trauma, PTSD. Some of them were it was all different things. But they all had borderline. And I was like, sweet. So we're not going to kick her out because she doesn't wear her shoes to therapy. And they were like, we don't kick borderlines out for being borderline. I was like, sweet. So when she disobeys everything you say, she's still going to be there, right? And they were like, yes. And I had to like go through it a couple times because she had been kicked out of so many.
Right.
So then she goes there, and within a month, she finds the one thing you can't do, which is have a relationship with another patient. She starts to have this like romantic relationship with another patient, another girl, which I mean, I kind of suspected that not that she was gay, but that she was bi at least. And she's dismissed. I mean, she was there for about 3 or 4 months. So she was sober. She remained sober throughout the fall. But something happened to her at the end of 2016 where, like, I think first of all, so, like, she was, when they do step down, they're in sober living. And sober living houses can either be really expensive and therefore lots of security and nice people and nice staff, or they can be sort of expensive and give you lots of freedom. And, like, at this point, by the time I sent her back for the second round, like, she had cleaned me out.
Yeah.
And I couldn't afford the $3,000 a month for the place that she wanted to go. Like, I was paying like $1,000 a month, and it was still a lot. Then a woman overdoses 2 floors up. Then her roommate starts to use. Then a guy ends up in her apartment. Like, she comes home and a guy's just like in her apartment with a key from the roommate. You know, like, she was just going through some stuff, and she was in Utah now.
Oh.
So, like, I couldn't visit or help, or like, the only thing she really had going on was this girl, Sarah, who she loved. And meanwhile, on the phone, she's like getting more anxious, and she wants to come home for Christmas. And I mean, I can't let her because I have a little boy who's 5 now. He was 2 then, and I just didn't trust that she could live here anymore. She just had proven to me that she couldn't, and so I don't know. I just, you know, she just started feeling like I might rehab. I don't know what I'm going to do, but the cravings are so strong. Nothing is helping, and then, you know, one day she just wasn't answering her text. And for a teenager, I mean, Emily could answer a text in her sleep.
Sure.
So she just wasn't answering her text. And then finally her girlfriend called me. Her girlfriend is very, very shy. She would not even talk to me on the phone when she was with Emily, much less. So when I saw her number pop up, I panicked.
It's bad. Knew it was bad.
And that was it. She had passed away that morning. And what happened was the girlfriend had told her, if you relapse and I see one shred of evidence that there's been drugs in your apartment, I will walk out of your apartment and never speak to you again. And so I think what happened was, rather than hide that, she did it all and died.
Oh, my God.
So she overdosed, and then, you know, there was a whole memorial with like 300 people here, and, you know, yeah, go ahead. That's a very short version of it. Even though it's not short, it's like 15 minutes, but still.
No, but as a mother, and thankfully, I cannot empathize. My children haven't tried any of those things, and universe willing, they never will. But when I hear she begged to come home, she was afraid of relapsing, and I had to protect my other child, so I said no. Then that leaves you with what? How are you feeling at this point?
Horribly torn.
Yeah.
Actually, towards the end there, like, she had already been home like twice. The first time she was home, you know, when we drove her home and kidnapped her.
Right.
And then for her to come out sober and do well for so long and then relapse again, like, I was pretty angry about it. I have to say, like, I was really angry about it. And when she relapsed this time, she ran away for a week, and I didn't know where she was for a whole week. And then, you know, like, and then, you know, I was finding evidence in her room and syringes everywhere. And like, it just wasn't safe here. And then, like, I found, like, I don't know, like Nate's TV in her backseat of her car. She was like trying to pawn his stuff. Like, my other son, not Isaac.
Your baby,
she just was like out of control. And I mean, Philly is very, very, very riddled with addiction and drugs. And we live very close to there. And so I think it was just too tempting. And Utah is actually the safest city in the country, so they say. That's not to say that if you don't Google where to get heroin, you can't find it. So
and that's what she was using.
And that's what she was using heroin, yeah. So, there was no way that I was going to let her around my little boy because it just wasn't fair. And he missed her terribly. Aww. But the closer she got to dying, the more erratic she was. Like, she started being in a bad mood all the time, and she was starting to be depressed, and she was being bossy, and like there was no, usually I could like, she has a great sense of humor, so usually I could text her something and make her laugh or get her to make a joke back to me, and like that last week there was nothing.
And that week, was she sober? Like the when she used and overdosed, do you think that was the first?
No, it was like the second. The first time she did it, she actually went to her rehab, told them that she relapsed, and they said, "Here, let's make a plan for you to stay sober." Put it in her pocket and sent her home.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. I was so angry. I was like, if she told you she relapsed, why don't you detox her? Why don't you keep her for a week? What? I just at that point she's dead. So it's like, why even argue about it? I can't even argue about it now. What's the point? It's too painful to yell at someone else. Besides, they're not the one that did the drugs.
No. So did you go through that phase? Doesn't sound like you did. And maybe because this was such a multi-year process for you. Did you go through, or do you still go through a phase where you're angry at other people?
Yeah. I mean, not other people. No, mostly her. I would say I'm not angry at other people. The only people I would still be angry at would be them.
Yeah.
But really overall, every rehab, and actually the entire mental health system, every rehab that said we do dual diagnosis and then kicked her out. Every time she was telling people lies about her identity and they didn't immediately ask me what was up with that. Every time every time they kicked her out because it was 30 days up and insurance, they didn't want to resubmit to insurance. And my insurance would pay for anything. All they had to do was resubmit, but instead they wanted cash. And I couldn't pay cash. So that's the kind of stuff that makes me angry. I mean, she was sick. She was clearly sick, but I do think she could have gotten better. It's just that we don't treat addicts. We say it's a sickness, but they certainly don't have the kind of sickness and hospital stuff that sick people have. Like, they don't have the same kind of the same kind of medical care that sick people have at all.
Right. No, it's such a long, terrible issue with mental health and addiction in this country, and probably in others, but I'm not aware. A little over a year ago, I lost one of my cousins whom I loved and adored to a heroin overdose.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm sorry for you. Watching his parents survive this has been one of the most heartbreaking experiences of my life. So how do you survive something like that, Jessica?
I don't think that all of you does survive. I think that part of you is gone and cannot come back. And that actually causes an identity crisis because, and this happened with my mother too. When my mother passed away, and I was 30, you cannot be the person you were when you had a daughter or a mother, but you can't be the person without them either.
Right.
So you're sort of stuck in this, well, I had a daughter, but now I don't. So how many kids do I have? What do I say when people ask? Do I need to horrify everyone with this? I say, it depends on who it is. If it's someone at the, a hair cuttery.
Right.
I'll usually say I have 2 sons. And then if Isaac, who loves to talk about Emily, he slips out about the daughter. I was like, yeah, she died a couple years ago. I mean, I don't usually say how or why.
Right. Well, it's nobody's business.
Because it's strangers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's the answer is different depending on, I guess, who's asking. Most of the time, I just say I have older kids and a younger son, and I don't really get too into it.
Right.
Yeah.
How has Emily's death changed the way you live your life?
I am not afraid of anything.
Yeah.
And that is quite liberating, actually.
What could be worse than losing a child?
Nothing. Yeah. Nothing could be worse. Nothing could be worse. Not divorce, not losing all your money, not losing all your hair. Nothing. Nothing is worse than losing your only daughter. And so if someone makes me mad, they better duck. If I want to do something, I figure it out. I mean, I don't know why or how that like inner, I don't want to say rage, but I guess strength. I don't show it that often, but when I do, boy, it can be kind of crazy. In fact, we were talking about choicing my son into, like, we have school choice here where you have to sign up for their regular school that they're supposed to, like, their feeder pattern, but then you can choice them into public, I guess, private schools. They still
charter schools.
Yes,
Okay.
charter schools. And I think somebody was like, well, you have to turn it in by this day or you can't do this. And I was like, let them try and stop me.
That's what you think.
I mean, I think it was like, well, you may have to do public school because he may not get into any privates. I'm like, oh, he'll get in. Like, there's no questioning me about the public school versus don't question me about my child. They just better run out of the way.
Yeah.
But I've kind of always been that way on some level. But now it's worse because I give 0 Fs. So it's
I feel that.
Yeah. I mean, it's also, but it can be, like I said, it's liberating in the sense that, like, I'm willing to try stuff with my business I probably would not have done before. I'm willing to stop being friends with people who don't serve me anymore. I'm willing to cut off family members that I think are toxic. I have no regret about any of it.
Yeah.
And I mean, for
you.
other people, that's scary. I mean, for people like my husband, for example, I think that's scary. He's not like that.
Sure.
If anything, he's more reserved. He's gone the opposite way.
I was going to say, I think that there are sort of two options. I mean, and I don't know because I haven't been in this boat. So if anybody's listening, if you want to chime in, if you want to share your own experience, please do so. But I think you either go into like, I have no F's to give. I will try all the things because nothing could be as bad. What do I have to lose? But in a healthy way, or completely shut down, unable to communicate, unable to thrive at all.
Yeah.
After the loss.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds about right. And I mean, some days I'm like that. Some days I like to work from bed. Some days I don't want to deal. I haven't really done a lot of social media since she passed away. Like, I did it first and then I stopped. And I was a social media consultant.
Right.
And I can't. So there's a couple things that I am. So, like, I sound very brave, right? There's a couple things that I'm struggling with that I've identified but not resolved. I know these are problems, but I'm not sure how to deal with them. Number one, the social media thing. I know social media is great. I used to love it. It used to make me happy. And the 0 Fs thing is carried on into that. Like, I don't
feel
care
you on that, though.
It's kind of like, it's not even that I don't care what other people are saying. And like, I've even said this, like, my friends like, but you're so interesting. People care what you say. And I'm like, I don't care what I say. It's not even that they don't care. I know I'm interesting. I'm not interested in me. I don't find anything I do interesting enough to share. And it's not because I'm not interesting. It's not even that. It's just that, like, I don't know. I just, haven't I said it all already? Don't you know me? It's like, when is it over?
You've
it's never
put yourself
over.
out there. Right.
Oh my God. And
so,
then the other thing, the other thing is, my relationship with my body is extremely disconnected.
Okay. Wow.
And it's all the way down. So I'm starting to do little things like take care of my nails or like get a pedicure. And like I started out with my hair and my skincare regime. But like for a while there, like I was doing nothing to take care of my physical self because it was all I could do to take care of the mental part.
Just to stay alive. And to care for your young child.
And also because, the mental part, I know that exactly, the mental part needs to thrive. But like the eating and the exercising and even skin lotion, when my skin is dry, like I wasn't bothering with any of it. And I realized that as a teenager and in college and even after, when I was pregnant with my older ones, like I was very in tune to my physical self. And now I don't even know myself from the neck down. It's a weird phenomenon. I mean, there's been a couple other moms with small kids who have been like, oh, yeah, I kind of get what you mean. But like, I don't know if it's that or if it's just that I've been ignoring that because I've been so busy dealing with emotion and thought.
Yeah, that's a fascinating It's a fascinating conversation.
I'm working on it.
And yet, professionally, so much of the work you do is geared towards the public.
Yes, all of it, in fact.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one thing I've always been really good at is I hate the word authentic, but just being me. Like I have ADHD and no filter. So like I'm not very good at having a persona or being political, or I mean, it's not to say that I'm always insulting people, because when people say like I have no filter and I am authentic, they think, oh my gosh, she's constantly cursing and stirring up shit. And I'm not. It's just that like this is all I have, sort of. So like, yeah, I mean, working with the public is and another thing is, to be honest with you, I sort of feel like, look, if I can do stuff with this in my pocket, what are you struggling with exactly?
Yeah.
What exactly is your problem that you can't start your podcast, start your business, go on a trip?
Get over yourself.
Like even people with breast cancer go to Disney World. Let's go.
Yeah.
You know, let's go. Let's go. Because, and you know, if it is a death, and also I feel like those people who die by accident or by cancer, or the people who hurt you, like they don't deserve your misery. They're gone. They don't care. They're doing their own thing and having a blast. They don't care. You are the only one suffering, and you are doing it to yourself. The death can't do it to you. It has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with me that she died. Nothing.
No, not a thing. But yet you do that to your own self when you don't take care of your skin and when you choose to not, eat well or all of that.
It's true.
You're sabotaging your own self and
It's
well-being.
true. I'm only recently conscious of it, though.
Okay.
And it, like for the last 3 I've noticed that I've gained weight, but I was ignoring that as well.
Right.
And so it's only been in the last couple months. I mean, I was working really hard on the event. So She Podcast Live was in October.
Yes.
And as soon as that was over, I had some time to reflect on that. And I also realized that while working on that, it was a perfect excuse for me to continue doing nothing else but work.
Yeah.
And take care of my kids. So like, now that I have 6 months or so before 8 months before things get crazy, like I'd like to sort of chip away at it, I think.
Yeah.
Good I'm
for
chipping
you.
away at it. Yeah. So
I can't wait to hear how that goes for you.
Me too. Thanks.
Yeah. One of the questions that I ask every week on this show feels like a difficult question to ask you, but
come on, let's have it.
Well, the question that I ask is, how do you celebrate success? And we're talking about the torment
That's a good question.
Of your child through her own life to you and losing her. And maybe there's a before and an after. I don't know. But so there have to be successful moments. They're always there, even if we don't look for them. How do you celebrate the things that go well when your heart is irrevocably broken?
It is, when it's pertaining to this story, a difficult question to answer. And actually, it's a difficult question to answer for someone who is almost never fully satisfied with anything and how it goes. So
right.
like, and I don't know if that's like my comic mind or, like I'm self-deprecating naturally. And so
right.
I almost never do anything and think, wow, that was a bang up job I did. There's always something that I'm like, if only I did this, or I could have done that, or I was wearing no underwear whatever it was, like. When it comes to M, though, I didn't have to wait long to celebrate successes because she passed away, and then 300 people came to her memorial, and then all these teenagers stood up and talked about how much she changed their lives.
Wow.
And I don't know that a lot of teenagers could have a memorial like that, but Emily was not just a warrior for herself. In fact, she would throw herself in front of a bus for a stranger. And that's what she seemed to do a lot, because there were a lot of kids that were like, I'm sober because Emily, I'm sober because she gave me encouragement. I only made it through high school because Emily would stop in on me once in a while and see how I was doing. Or I met Emily because I was crying in the hallway and she stopped what she was doing to sit down, even though we didn't know each other, and find out what was wrong with me. Emily made her rounds. She did not mess around. She was, Emily was the first person to ever tell me that I was beautiful. No one else ever was nice to me that way. And, I have some shred of self-esteem because of her. She was a special, special girl. And I know that I raised a funny, sweet, smart, amazingly creative and generous person, a person who knew very clearly right from wrong, but for some reason could not make those decisions for her own well-being. Either could not or didn't want to. And like, if you believe in, and I don't know if I do, I will preface it with, I don't know that I do, but if you believe in past lives and the afterlife and the spiritual realm, there are people who do believe in those things that have told me that Emily is a spirit that decided to come to this realm to learn something, and then the moment she got here realized she probably was not ready.
Oh, wow.
And so her spirit has had unrest ever since she got here. And I'll tell you, when she was born, that's 100% right.
Wow.
She was a crying fool for the first 5 months.
She was like, nope, I want to go back.
She had colic. She was clingy.
Oh.
But I mean, like, if I reflect on her overall spirit, as special as she was, like, she did have a constant state of unrest. Not everyone does. You know, some people are on this planet to learn these specific lessons, and she had an idea of what, this is just what was told to me. She had an idea of what she was supposed to learn, but then as soon as she was born, she was like, I can't do it yet. I'm not ready yet.
Yeah.
My spirit's not ready yet. And and actually it did seem like she was very self-destructive. And I'm now that I have heard that from someone, I'm curious if that's, I don't know if it's true, but I just wonder.
I don't know either. Although I won't ever discredit whatever it is that gives us peace.
Well, there's that. I mean, I don't know that necessarily gives me peace, because I am kind of irritated. I mean, even that irritates me. And actually, there was a psychic. So, like, one of Emily's things she used to say when she would trip, and she was a little clumsy sometimes. So, like, she would trip and go, "Oops, I made a mistake," or she would like drop the remote. "Oops, I made a mistake." So, I do have a client who's a psychic who, one day we were coaching her, and she was like, "If you want to talk to her." And so I said, "Yeah, I'd love to know what was going through your mind. Like, didn't you know you were gonna die? Because all the rehabs seem to have told you." And the woman stopped for a second and then said, "Oops, I made a mistake."
Oh, wow.
And I was like, "Oh, I'll kill you again. What do you mean, oops, I made a mistake?" I mean, but I could so see that happening to her. That is a classic Emily move, though. To think I can handle it. I won't do that much. I'll just do a little, and then Sarah will come. Oops, I made a mistake. That is classic Emily.
Wow.
That's why I sort of believe it. Because like
she couldn't have pulled that out of.
She would have never known that. Never known that. But oops, I made a mistake. I mean, I instantly start crying out of,
because you knew. Yeah.
Yeah, but also I was so pissed at that answer.
I feel that.
What do you mean you made a goddamn mistake?
It's not the kind of mistake. You can trip. You can't make this kind of mistake.
Yeah, you made a mistake. I was ready to strangle her myself. Made a mistake. Oh. I mean, and I guess she was trying to be funny. I mean, again, she was funny.
Right.
So.
Wow.
Yeah. So, like, I don't know that I believe it or I don't believe it, but.
But maybe kind of.
Maybe kind of, and it does make sense. I don't know that it necessarily gives me peace, but it does make sense to me. And also, there is, I don't want to say success, but there is peace in knowing she doesn't struggle with that anymore, because she really struggled with that addiction a lot, and she really tried to kill it a lot, and it could not. It won, and she knew it would win. She was 100% confident it would win, and it did. Even though she was trying, she just couldn't. And I don't think anyone with borderline personality, as soon as I realized that's what she had, I knew this is how she would die. Because anybody who is constantly in a stage of horrible anxiety and rage, who would want to be sober?
Right.
Why would you want sobriety?
You got to get out of that.
That sounds horrible.
Yeah.
So, and then as far as like celebrating like business success or personal success, I don't know that it's in me to do that. So I just try to be grateful.
Okay.
It's not necessarily
I think gratitude is a form of celebration for sure.
Yeah. I mean, grateful for what I have at that moment, even though I know that in my head I'm going to constantly try and improve it.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is something I can't improve anymore. And that actually is, on some level, irritating.
I feel that. It's something that you could grow into if you decided it was important to you.
This is a little off topic, but I'm going to bring it up anyway, because it's something that I know people talk about a lot and have lots of opinions about. So I'll just say this. From that perspective only, of not being able to approve and not being able to. So, like, there are cities in this country that are starting to set up safe injection sites for heroin addicts, where there's a nurse there and there's Narcan, and they give you clean needles and they give you a little space, I guess, for you to sleep or whatever the hell people do. I don't know because I'm not an addict, but like whatever they need, they'll have at the safe injection site. And then if they do happen to go over the oops, I made a mistake level, they can be brought back.
How do you feel about that?
I mean, the instinct is to say you're just encouraging heroin use, but
Sure.
but I can tell you that nothing encourages heroin use but heroin. But here's the deal: if they're alive, they can turn it around.
I
but
feel
once
you.
they're gone, it's done.
Yeah.
So if that means that there's a nurse that can save 2 of them or 4 of them or 7 of them, freaking do it. Do it. Because it's better than having them die in the street with no hope. Like once it's done, it's done. And that's the only reason. People who are like, you're just enabling, you're just encouraging. You don't need to do that. You don't have to give them money or not give them money. I didn't give her a penny. She found it. She did it. It wasn't with my help. I mean, they will do it. They need to do it. Their brain is dying to have it.
Yeah.
So if they're going to do that, at least give them a chance to live another day so they could try and stop again. That's all. That's all.
Right. No,
Yeah.
I completely agree. But I can also see how it's a somewhat controversial concept
it is.
and probably leads to a lot of heated discussions, to say the least. But I feel you on, they don't need any encouragement or any support. It's not like they weren't going to do the drug and then they saw the facility and they were like, oh, well, maybe I'll try it. Like,
and they're not having a good time. None of those people are having the time of their lives. I assure you, they are broke. They are sick. They are desperate. They are lonely. Their parents and friends have thrown them away. Like, they are not having a good time. So if you can give them one more day to sort of make an effort, that's all they have, really. I know there's lots of controversy and there's lots of chit chat about how it would go and who would be there and what would they have and what would it cost. And that's all fine and good. But to me, the bottom line is if you can save one, then you should. Right. That's all.
And if your daughter had access to a facility like that, she could still be here.
Yeah. I don't know that she would have gone, but yes, exactly.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's kind of a natural lead into my last real question for you. But before I ask it, I just wanted to say thank you for sharing this with us. It's we made it kind of sound like a very light and easy conversation, but it's not. It's not a light and easy conversation, and it's a horrible crisis in our country. And I am so sorry for your loss.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. No, I mean, I'm sure it's also on lots of levels not easy to hear, but it is important because all of you, I guarantee, know someone who is either struggling or has died with this. And if you think about it, you'd be surprised.
Absolutely. And you don't want to think, you think that's for those people, those other people have that problem. Well, I'm one of those people. I lost a loved one to addiction. In fact, I lost 2 cousins to addiction. One was a drawn-out overdose and his body just broke, and the other one was a quicker loss. But I think you're right about that you all know somebody, and we all need to work on helping people. We can't save other people, but helping them, supporting them, changing laws, all of it. We all have to be in this, which is why. So the last question I have for you is, what is your favorite charitable organization to support and why?
There is an organization here in Delaware called Attack Addiction that was started by parents of a child who overdosed. Mm-hmm. And they do a lot of good here in the state. I think it's attackaddiction.org. I was volunteering for them for a while, and then I kind of got a little bruised by it, not because of them, but just because it can be hard to be in that all the time. So absolutely. Also, I think Partnership for Drug-Free America does a really amazing job at education and awareness. Oh, and there's one more. Wait. There's one more that's brand new, and it's a Jewish organization that is starting to do some education. It's called Chayenu, and I'm going to spell it so you guys, in case you're interested. It's CHAYEINU Baltimore.org, and they are doing education and awareness in the Jewish community. There's a very, very strong Orthodox Jewish community in Baltimore. And so they've started that to, yeah.
Yeah, those are wonderful. Thank you. We will link to all of them in the show notes and share them. Friends, listeners, if you can support these organizations, or if you know anybody who needs their support, please reach out, get to know them, have their information readily available for, you may not know when you need it as a resource. So they need all the love they can get. This is how we build a better, stronger, healthier world, is by supporting one another. So Jessica, would you share your 3 words with us one last time?
Pressure, bravery, helplessness.
I think certainly you described this was years worth of buildup and pressure, and that you have and still feel helpless. What element of this do you mean when you say bravery? Share with us where the bravery comes into this for you and the way you feel. I know where I can see it, but what does it feel like for you?
I mean, to be honest with you, for a long time it was her bravery, her willingness to try and fight,
survive.
to try and be sober.
Wow.
And then afterwards, I guess my own in trying to give my little one a life that doesn't include a giant gaping hole of death.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, he does actually talk about death a lot, but it's because my husband and I have also each lost a parent.
Right.
So we talk about like my mom and my dad, and where are they? And Emily's died too. And, you know, so he's very comfortable with it, which might be a little creepy to others, but, being able to raise him as a happy, well-rounded child, I think takes a lot. You know, at the beginning there was many times I could not. It was very hard to just take him to school and pick him up. And so, and you know, and then also the bravery and showing your face in a small community, and then starting to work again, and then starting to imagine what life could be for yourself. Like all that takes bravery, especially if you lost someone. So
it sure does. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm really touched. I got chills actually when you mentioned Emily's bravery, and I just don't think enough people stop to recognize how hard it is to survive if you have that type of terrible addiction.
If you know a heroin addict, I can assure you they're the bravest people out there in the world. They are. I mean, they're still sick, and maybe they're not making the right decisions for themselves, but I can guarantee you they don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
And it makes them incredibly brave just to keep going. Keeping going when you're in that position is the bravest thing I ever saw.
Thank you so much for sharing that perspective. On that note, I just thank you again for taking the time, and I hope that we're able to support somebody who's hurting, or support somebody who's got a loved one who's hurting, and that they can try and get them to stay brave and to keep themselves and to heal themselves. So, Jessica, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me, really.
Friends, you know, bravery comes in all forms. It's big and it's small and it's hard. Sometimes even bravery feels not brave. I have lots of folks who come back to me and say, oh, I didn't think that was brave at the time, and I guess it is. So maybe it wasn't so hard. My goal is to help you all leverage your fear into intentional bravery. I do that through the show, I do it in my personal life, and I do it through my coaching. And if I can support you in that, please reach out to me. You can reach me at heather@vickeryandco.com. You can find me on all the social media platforms at Vickery & Co. But I am here to support you, and I want to work with you on intentional bravery. And I thank you so much for taking the time to be here. If you have thoughts, feedback on the show, I would love for you to give us a call at 312-646-0205. But for now, I hope you will go out and choose bravely. The Brave Files is proudly supported by Audible. If you enjoy listening to podcasts, you're sure to love listening to your favorite books on Audible. Get your free 30-day trial complete with a credit for a free audiobook download today simply by visiting audibletrial.com/thebravefiles. Again, that's visiting audibletrial.com/thebravefiles. You've been listening to The Brave Files, stories from people living courageously. To learn more about the show, find our show notes, or get some great bonus content, visit thebravefilespodcast.com. And we'd love to know what you think. You can give us a call at 312-646-0205. Let us know your thoughts on the episode, the show in general, or maybe share with us how you're out choosing bravely. This episode is brought to you by Vickery & Co. Success Coaching, coaching that helps you maintain a life well lived and a business well run. Learn more at vickeryandco.com. Our music is produced by Matt Lewis. Follow him on Instagram at mattmmusic or visit his website, theunionband.com. We couldn't do any of this without our extraordinary audio engineer, Andrew Olson. Learn more about him and check out his work at findandrewolson.com. And special thanks to our associate producer, Kim Statler. I'm your host and executive producer, Heather Vickery. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next week.